In this video, I'm going to talk about the quotient rule, okay? In the last video, we talked about the product rule. So here I'll talk about the quotient rule. Also at the end, I'll talk about the higher order derivative, meaning that we found the derivative so far, but we didn't find the derivative twice, meaning that you find out the derivative once and then whatever you got, you find out the derivative on that again, okay? That is called the second derivative. So let us do the quotient rule first. Quotient rule means if there is the ratio of the two functions, or fx divided by gx, then how do I find out the y prime? How do I find out the derivative of that? I use exactly same limit definition of the derivative of a function. If y equals to f of x, then what we do is y prime will be limit h tends to 0. You replace x by x plus h minus, just write down fx divided by h. I'm doing the exactly same thing here, right? I replace x by x plus h, that is fx plus h divided by gx plus h minus fx over gx whole divided by h. So now you want to simplify that. How do I simplify? So limit h tends to 0, right? You can write just the same denominator. So how do I do that? You just multiply the denominator with the denominator. That will give you g of x times g of x plus h, right? That's the product of those two. After you do that, you do the cross multiplication, okay, like that. So what do you get? You get f of x plus h times g of x, right? And then there is minus f of x times g of x plus h, right? X plus h, that's what you get. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to use the trick that I used for the product rule, the similar thing. Limit h tends to 0, then what do you get? Let me write down the first one as it is, x plus h times g of x, and let me write down the last one as it is, f of x times g of x plus h. So there is minus sign, right? And then divide by, oh, by the way, I forgot h in the denominator. What you can do here is, this is h over 1, right? So if you do that, then it will be 1 times 1 over h, right? So you will multiply, you'll write like this, h times g of x times g of x plus h. That's what you do. And then so for the numerator here, for this gap part, I'm adding and subtracting something. So what I want to do is I want to do minus f of x times g of x, and then I want to do plus f of x times g of x. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, now let us look at the group, the first group and then this second group. Okay, first two terms are the first group and the last two terms are the second group. Now you take the common thing out. So what is that common there? So the common thing there is, you can write limit h tends to 0. Okay, what is common? So gx is common, so you can write like this, f of x plus h, right? And then a minus f of x, and outside the bracket you write g of x. Okay, and then I want to take minus out. You will see why I took minus out. So if I took minus out, what is left there will be, so I'm taking minus f of x out, negative f of x out, but there is plus, so that is negative times negative, right? So I'm taking one of the negative and fx out, so what is left is negative gx, right? So let me write down negative g of x here, and if I take negative fx out, what is left is positive g of x plus h. That's what I'm doing there. And then divide by, so I am dividing the whole thing by h times g of x times g of x plus h. So next thing I will do is I will split the denominator. When I split the denominator, you see that whenever I split the denominator, you see that since limit h is 0, so you will see that this will be f prime of x, right? And then that h with that thing, divide by h, right? Divide by that h, basically. That, let me group that way. That thing is basically g prime of x. And when you take the h tends to 0, So you will get gx times gx there, right? So this is what it looks like. So it will look like this. Limit h tends to 0, right? You write g of x and then times f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h times let me write a little bit different way. So what I want to do is I want to write the remaining terms after g of x there, okay? So that's what I want to do there. So g of x times g of x plus h, and then there is h there, okay, and then minus fx over g of x times g of x plus h, okay, times g of x plus h minus gx divided by h, okay. When limit h tends to 0, again that will be, so again let me circle that thing will be f prime of x and that thing will be g prime of x, okay. So how would that look like then? So it looks like this. So g of x times f prime of x, okay. So limit h tends to 0. Let me write f first. F prime of x times g of x over g of x square. Why? Because I'm let me write g of x times g of x plus h for now. G of x times g of x plus h, okay, minus, you can write fx times g prime of x, right? Because that thing is g prime of x, divided by g of x times g of x plus h. So when h tends to 0, that thing will go to 0, right? And similarly that thing will go to 0. So you will get gx square in the denominator, gx times gx, right? That will be g of x squared. So you will see like this. And then since both of the denominator are the same, I am just writing a single denominator. So I will write f prime of x times gx minus f of x times g prime of x divided by g of x square. So this is the formula for y prime, okay? This is the formula for the derivative of f over z. So you can write y prime equals to that way. But if you look at the book, the first couple pages, there are formula. So they have written like this. If there is u over v, and then if you find out the derivative of that, then what they do is they will write like this: u prime v minus u v prime divided by v square. Okay, you see that? What was the product rule? Product rule was u prime v plus u v prime. And there was no denominator in the product rule. But in the quotient rule, there is u prime of v minus in the middle. U times u v minus u times v prime divided by v square. Okay. So we will see some examples and then how to use that formula. Okay. Let us look at this example. It is like u, this is like v, right? What is the formula for y prime then? U over v prime. So u over v prime is basically, so y prime is equals to u prime v minus u v prime over v square, right? Let's plug in that. What is u prime? So u prime is basically the derivative of 5 sine x. So the derivative of, when you find out the derivative of 5 sine x, then it will be 5 will come out and the derivative of sine x will be cosine x. So you'll write 5 cosine of x times v. V is 1 minus cosine of x minus. The formula is minus there. U times v prime. So u is 5 sine x. What is the derivative of v prime? What is the derivative of v? The derivative of 1 is 0 and then minus derivative of cosine x is negative sine x, right? So you get 0 minus negative sine x will be positive sine x. You see that? So that will look like positive sine x there. That is the v prime. Divided by v square is 1 minus cosine of x and then square. You see that? Now you simplify that one, okay? So what do you get? If you simplify, you will get, let me distribute that 5 cosine x. 5 cosine of x minus 5 cosine square x, okay? And then minus 5 sine square x. You see that? Cosine 5 cosine x times 1 is 5 cosine x. 5 cosine x times negative cosine x is minus 5 cosine square x. And minus 5 sine x times sine x is sine x square x. You see that? Divide by 1 minus cosine of x square. Okay, so if you simplify this, what I will do is I'm taking out negative 5 out from the last two terms, so that I will have cosine square x plus sine square x, which is 1. That's my idea there. Okay, so what I want to do is 5 cosine of x minus 5. If you take 5 out from these two terms, actually, if you take 5 out from this term, negative 5 out from this term and that term, then you will get cosine square x plus sine square x. But the value of cosine square x plus sine square x is 1, right? And divide by 1 minus cosine of x square. Let me take 5 out because there is 5 cosine x minus 5. I want to take 5 out as well. So if I take 5 out, you will get cosine of x minus 1 divided by 1 minus cosine of x square. Okay, so what would you do in that case is basically, let me simplify that. So I want to write in terms of 1 minus cosine x because there is 1 minus cosine x in the denominator. So what I want to do is I want to take negative 1 out, so that it will be negative 5 out, 1 minus cosine of x divide by 1 minus cosine of x square. So look at this. They have the terms in common, right? Because there is 1 minus cosine x. That 1 minus cosine x square is 1 minus cosine x times 1 minus cosine x. That's what you will get. Okay. So what is left there is negative 5 over 1 minus cosine of x. That is the final answer. Okay, guys. So the next example, you want to find out f prime of x, because find the derivative in all these problems. You need to find out the f prime of x, and also you need to find out f prime at 1, meaning you find out the derivative and then you will plug in x equals to 1. That's what you want to do here. Okay, let me write down the simplified form here. So f of x equals to, I want to distribute this, okay, 5 minus 80x divided by x squared minus 4. You see that? So why did I do that? Because I don't want to use product rule here, because this is just a constant. So another thing you can do is you can pull that constant out and find the derivative of the inside only. That is perfectly fine. Or you can distribute this and then find the derivative. Okay. The first term has the derivative 0. The second term has the form u over v. You see that? It is like u over v. So the derivative will be u prime v minus u v prime over v square. That's what I'm going to use. Okay, so what is f prime of x then? So the f prime of x is equals to 0 minus, okay, because the derivative of 5 is 0, and this minus u prime is 80 times the derivative of x is 1 times v x squared minus 4, okay, minus u is 80x times v prime is the derivative of x squared minus 4 is 2x. You see that? Divide by x squared minus 4. Now we simplify that. There is negative sign at the front. So 80x squared minus 320. I'm distributing that. Okay. Minus 80 times 2 is 160 x squared divided by x squared minus 4. Oh, by the way, I forgot the square here because the formula is v squared, right? Okay. So what do you get? So you get, so 80x squared minus 160 x squared will be negative 80x squared, right? Minus negative 80x squared minus 320 divided by x squared minus 4 square. But there is negative, so I want to distribute this negative to both of these because this is common to all the terms, right? So you can distribute on the top only or bottom only, but you don't distribute on top and bottom both. Okay, so that will be 80x squared plus 320. I'm distributing that negative sign to both of those over x squared minus 4 to the square. Now I want to find out f prime of 1, meaning I want to replace x by 1. So you'll get 80 plus 320, because 80 times 1 square, that is just 80, right? And divide by, you get 1 minus 4 square, because 1 square is 1, right? So 400 over 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Square of negative 3 is positive 9. That is the final answer. Okay, so 400 over 9 is the derivative, or basically it is the slope at a point x equals to 1. So how about this problem? Find the point at which fx equals to x squared over x squared plus 6 has a horizontal tangent. For horizontal tangent, the derivative must be 0, right? So we want to find out the point where the derivative is 0. So solution, let's find out f prime. So again, this is like u, this is like v, right? So it is u prime times v minus u times v prime over v squared. That is the formula, right? U prime is 2x times v is x squared plus 6, right? And then minus u times v prime. How do I do that? So minus u times u is x squared, right? Minus x squared times, so you write minus x squared times v prime is the derivative of x squared plus 6 is again 2x, right? Divide by v squared is x squared plus 6 squared. You see that? So what you get is basically 2x times x squared is 2x cubed, right? 2x cubed, and then plus 12x minus 2x cubed, because I'm distributing that x squared times the 2x, right? Divide by, you get x squared plus 6 squared. See that they cancel out? This negative 2x cubed and the positive 2x cubed cancel out. So what is left there is basically 12x divided by x squared plus 6 to the square. Okay, now for the horizontal tangent, for horizontal tangency, we need f prime of x equals to 0. Okay, that means you write 12x over x squared plus 6 square is equals to 0. Now you want to solve for x. Okay, so look at this denominator. The denominator is never 0. For any value of x, the denominator is never 0, because if you take x negative, but squaring that negative value will give you positive, plus 6 will be bigger than 6. Okay, so that thing is non-negative, so you can divide by this non-zero number. Okay, divide this by non-zero number to solve for x. What do you get? You divide both sides by that. Okay, right? So it is like times x squared plus 6 squared, and then times x squared plus 6 squared, and then this will be 0, that will be 0, right? That will cancel out. So what is left at the end is basically 12x equals to 0. When you plug in 12, when you divide by 12, what do you get? Is x equals to 0. But you need to find the point, meaning x and y. If you plug in x equals to 0, what is y? Plug in that x equals to 0 here. Okay, so 0 over 0 plus 6 is 0 over 6, that is 0, right? So actually the point is 0 comma 0 is the final answer. All right, so this is the point where the tangent of the curve is basically horizontal. Okay, then the next example here is determine the value of x in the interval 0 to pi such that the rate of change is derivative, right? Don't forget that. Rate of change is also called slope. The derivative in case of the moving particle, rate of change is the velocity of the moving particle, okay, moving object. So here you want to find out the value of x where this and that function have the same rate of change, meaning their derivative are equal. So let's do that. What is f prime of x? It is secant x times the tangent x, right? And what is g prime of x? It is negative cosecant x times cotangent x. So you want to write them equal because it says they are equal, the rate of change are equal. So you write secant x times tangent x, okay, equals to negative cosecant x times cotangent x. You see that? So what you can do next is you can move, you can change them into the sine and cosine, okay, all of them into the sine and cosine. Or before that, let's change them into the sine and cosine. What do you get? So what is this? It is 1 over cosine x, right, times sine x over cosine x equals to negative cosecant x is 1 over sine x, right, because the reciprocal of cosecant is sine, reciprocal of secant is cosine. Reciprocal of cotangent is tangent, right, that is cosine over cosine x over sine x. You see that? So now, do you know the cross multiplication? Or you can multiply by sine square x, and then that will cancel out, right? Or if you think about the cross multiplication, if you have done that before, the cross multiplication is if there is only one term, because there is a product, meaning this is the single term, that is the single term on the left, and then you can, if there is equal to sign in the middle, then you can multiply that with those, okay? So basically what you get here is, you will get this. So sine x times sine x times sine x is sine cubed x equals to cosine x times cosine x is cosine square x times cosine x equals negative cosine of cubed x. You see that? Now let's divide by cosine cubed x on both sides. Let's divide by cosine cubed x. Divide by cosine cubed x, right? If you do that, what do you get? That will cancel out. So the left side will become tangent cube x, okay? So that will be basically, this implies tangent cube x equals to negative 1. If you take the cube root, you will get tangent x equals to negative 1. So what values of tangent are negative 1? That falls between 0 and 2 pi. The tangent is negative in the second quadrant, right? The tangent is negative in the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. So you will have to look at the value. The value of the tangent that is equals to 1 is 45 degree, okay? So 45 degree, and that will be 135 degree, right? 135 degree is basically 3 pi over 4. X equals to 1 is 135 degree, that is 3 pi over 4. And the other value is in the fourth quadrant, that is 2 pi minus, because that one full circle is the 2 pi, right? 2 pi minus 35 degree, 2 pi minus 45 degree, because tangent 45 degree is 1, okay? So here I did pi minus 45 degree is 135 degree. So pi minus 45 degree is 135 degree. And this is 2 pi minus 45 degree is basically 2 pi is 360 minus 45 is 315, not 225, okay? 315. 315 can be written as 7 pi over 4. So these are the values of x where the slope of these two functions or the rate of change of these two functions are equal to each other, okay?